Thank you guys for coming. My name's Jason Smith. I'm running for District F, Clark County Commissioner, and I'm sure we will get to all the recent topics, but I wanted to tell you a little bit about who I am, where I come from, both philosophically as well as politically here. Originally from Southern California, moved up here about 8 years ago, and got involved in the Libertarian Party when I was a lot younger, but when I moved up here, the party was not viable, for using a great word. Lack of organization, lack of true just grit, people coming in that want to get things done. November of last year, we have a whole new executive committee, a little bit more of a professional presentation coming from the Libertarian Party now. We held a sheriff's debate in February, and we've got things going in the right direction. What we didn't want to do was make this Libertarian versus Republican and Democrat. So the theory that the Libertarian Party has right now is, let's work with liberty activists, specifically the Watchdogs, Panda, anybody that's out there fighting for liberty, and we have something in common with them. We want to lend our support. At this point, I'm looking across the table, and we have a large B, a sheriff, and a sheriff's candidate that is in the Democratic Party, a GOP, very libertarian-leaning Cindy, running for Clark County District G, and I kind of look at this as our 50 Shades of Liberty. It's something that doesn't need to be thrown on billboards and all that. It's in our hearts. It's what we fight for. It's why we're doing this. I don't think anybody at this table wants to be a career politician. We just want to change what's going on because we're frustrated, we're tired, and something needs to change, and what's in there now isn't working. So we have new ideas, we want to try them, we want to run them by people, ideas about liberty, ideas about trusting in community, instead of just trusting in let's build a huge government program, and then if it doesn't work, say, well, we got to tweak it a little bit. No, get back to what works, and we know what works in communities because we all live in a community. A lot of us know our neighbors, a lot of us do block parties and have barbecues, and that's where we talk about issues. We don't have to go to the county commissioners meeting and say, let's start a whole new government program to get stuff done. We can talk with our neighbors and see what's smart and what's just more realistic in our neighborhoods. So that's why I'm running. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer any. I've got plenty of libertarian stories I could tell you, but frankly, some of them aren't appropriate. So if anybody has any questions, I'm open to any and all of them.
Sure. Hi, Jason. I'm Wayne. I wanted to ask you a question about liberty. You were mentioning that you get liberty over and over again. What's your definition of what liberty is? I'm curious.
Liberty is very simple to grasp, but hard to quantify.
Okay.
And I'll give you an example. We all have rights. They're given to us by our Creator. And liberty, to me, means the free exercise of my rights, as long as I'm not infringing upon other people's rights. Raw milk, for example. My idea of liberty is I should be able to drink raw milk. But federally, that's illegal. I am committing a crime. That's not liberty. Telling me that I'm not hurting somebody, but I'm not allowed to do something that nobody else is hurt by, to me is an infringement of liberty. And you can extend that all the way to the war on drugs. You can extend it to anything from homesteading to driving down the street, and every time you see a policeman in your rearview mirror getting nervous, even though you're not doing anything wrong. I do the checklist. Seatbelt, okay, cell phones over there, I'm not touching anything, I'm going the speed limit. That's not right. I shouldn't have to live my life like that. So the idea of liberty for me is, and it is a balance, of individuals' rights, but defending other people's right to their liberty. So it is a two-way street. It's not just me against the city and I want to do whatever the heck I want. There is a balance, but as long as you're not infringing on the rights of others, be adults. I used to call it common courtesy. And that's where the argument usually breaks down online is people say, well, what about this, what about that? Well, what about just being an adult and having some common courtesy? Well, we need regulations on CB radios. Why? Because you're not allowed to whistle. Really? You need a law that tells you don't whistle or sing over a commercial band radio? And it's a little bit more common sense and a little less authoritative dictation of what you're allowed and not allowed to do. I hope I hit that on the head for you. All right. Anybody else with a question?
I don't know if this will work. Here we go. My question was just how do you perceive all the regulations and taxes that businesses have to submit to, and especially the county commission, since I think that you guys have a lot that you can do with that as far as regulations and ordinances and things like that.
Well, specifically, I just got louder. Specifically on regulations, permits, licenses, fees, etc. I just started a business earlier this year, and I am shocked. For a state that says we're business friendly, I am absolutely shocked that it takes the time it does to do everything for city, county, state, and then federal. I have file folders full of licenses and permits, and all I have are natural, no chemical cleaning supplies. That's not logical to me. Why would 3 or 4 different entities need permits, licenses, etc., when everything I have has already gone through the EPA and has been approved? To me, you're inhibiting somebody's liberty in growing a business. You know, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It is not a criminal offense to want to be productive and successful in business. But we almost treat people that want to open companies with you got to prove to me that you're worthy of starting a business. Excuse me? I could hire 20 people in my neighborhood. Why wouldn't you want that to flourish? And the attitude usually comes back, well, we just want to make sure that you're doing it right. Well, who is anybody to say that you're doing something right as long as you're not hurting anybody? And that's kind of where I go with the business essence. Let people, and especially in America, we've proven this over and over again, get your boot off of our neck and watch what we can do. It really is magical to look through the last 150 years of advancement, technology, industry, and see what we can do when we put our heads to it. So, regarding business, that's my stance.
Okay. Oh, sorry. You are running against Commissioner Brager. What would you do differently than she does now? We deal with her a lot on the commission, and it really bothers us, some of the votes that she does and the things that she does. What would you do differently? How would you stop spending so much of the people's money?
Well, this actually is a perfect intro into a story I wanted to tell, and I'll try to make it short. There's a toothpaste company years ago that had a problem in production. The problem was their assembly line, or their line of toothpaste boxes, would come down and automatically get filled with a tube, get closed, put into another box, packed up, shipped off to the customer. Every week, accounting had to do credits, bill backs, and all of these problems because empty boxes would go past without any toothpaste, and the customer would have problems, say, I want a credit, I want a return, I want the right product. The CEO told the engineers of his company, large toothpaste company, figure this out, get it done. No more of these problems. It's costing too much money fixing these little mistakes. Anybody that's ever done a production line knows it happens, you can't avoid it. So what they did is they got an engineering company and spent $8 million to fix this problem. The $8 million fix was a brilliant idea. It was a scale that went underneath the track, and as the box went across it, if it didn't have the weight, a bell would go off and a light would flash. It worked. Everybody did the beta testing. All right, put it in there for 1 week, caught the exact amount that they figured they would do from what they had lost before, fixed the problem. Till week number 2 came by. The machine never went off again. The CEO gets a phone call. We don't have that problem anymore. we have an $8 million fix, but no problem. Well, how did that happen? So they went to the line. They walk up to the line and they see a $20 fan that's been clipped to the assembly line where the boxes come down, and it blew the empty boxes off of the conveyor belt. You no longer have an empty box being shipped. Looks at the manager and says, what is this? We put this whole policy in place and you've got a $20 fan. Oh, well, Fred, every half hour or so, had to come and pick up the empty box, push the button to start the whole thing over. He just put a little box back there, and every 2 hours or so, he takes the 6 boxes, puts them back into production, and you got a $20 fix for an $8 million problem. That is what I see happening in most governments. We want to study it. We want to fix it with the most grand idea when it could be fixed with a $20 fan. Specifically, Susan Brager, with the fuel tax, with this new tax for more cops. And I know she was against it and then said, well, what about a smaller one? As far as I'm concerned, we don't need more money in Metro. We need more accountability, and we need people to start looking at where the money's going. $43 million gets lost on a radio system. Let's not argue about where to find $300,000 for this or that when we have $43 million going out the back door. We have another contract written right afterwards for Motorola. To me, I know where the money's going. It's going where government usually spends it. Corruption, loss, theft, etc. Exactly. So let's fix the problem. I understand when government needs more money for things that are very important. But if we're wasting money, don't tug on my heartstrings to help needy people when you're over there throwing money away, if not burning it. So that's where I would put the focus in the county commissioner's office, is on accountability of the money. Maybe an audit or two.
Hey, Jason. Echoing. David Bourne, you actually know me from Facebook. And you are actually in my district, and I'm familiar with Susan Brager, and I've had conversations with her. One of the things I wanted to ask, on a state level, we of course have all these criminal statutes. Now, along with that, we have a bunch of county criminal statutes. So as commissioner, is that something that you look at reviewing some of those statutes and possibly bringing up repealing some of those, one of them actually being, handgun registration, where the rest of the state, you don't have to register your handgun, but you do in Clark County?
Thank you, Dave. Yeah, that is a huge issue, but I think it goes even higher than that. I am running on one basic tenet, and that is accountability with independence. Right now, we have Clark County that has a taxi cab authority, but apparently no other county in Nevada is important enough to have a cab authority, because it's only in effect with counties over 700,000 people, just like the gun registration. Well, don't we have equal protection under the law? If I deserve a cab authority here in Las Vegas in Clark County, shouldn't WashU have one? Well, no, they don't need one. Oh, well, then why do we need one? Because we need extra bureaucrats to go out there, and we have to pay them, and we need control of the cab companies. And then you look at who is funding these campaigns for these people in office. Cab companies, utilities, casinos, everybody that has a monopoly given to them by government is gladly handing over their money to keep people in office. That's corrupt. I'm sorry, I'll call it the way I see it. If I have the authority to change laws on your business and you're supporting my campaign, there's a reason, and I don't like it. So I would say when it comes to independence, especially when it comes to the blue cards, cab authority, things like that, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. If Nevada wants just Clark County to have it, I say let's put the pressure back on them and say if you're not doing it in every other county, we're not doing it here. When it comes to things like criminal statutes, etc., I would put the pressure on the sheriff. I would say you're coming to me next year for a budget. If you've got 75% of the people in your jail are there for possession of marijuana and haven't hurt anybody, then you have way too much time. You don't need that many cops. Did that get to it? Sort of? What specifically were you looking for? As far as the blue card thing, I don't support registering anything.
Well, I mean, it's because it's not just, the sheriff, it's also, we have a lot of laws that give police power to do a lot of things. And actually, later I was actually going to ask Mr. Moody about our, if you look at a state law, justifiable homicide by a cop, which I have it written down, it basically allows police to pretty much murder people for any reason. So to me, it's not just the fact that, you know, the police being accountable, they're able to do it legally. So at the same time, we have laws that encourage this and allow them to do it. So I think along with that, a lot of these laws need to be changed. And as far as having, you know, criminal statutes in Clark County, we have all these statutes at a state level. How many criminal statutes do we need? And a lot of them are for ridiculous things. I mean, I know a lot of people here probably seen the video from a couple weeks ago where a local rapper was harassed by the police, basically just walking down the street. You have 5 cops there. You know, you throw them against the car. I've been arrested twice for obstruction of an officer. One of the times the charges were dropped because they arrested me for something that wasn't even a crime. And then I'm appealing the other thing. So it's basically, if you don't bow down, you know, they throw out that obstruction. So it's not also the fact that police aren't accountable. That's a huge thing where we have county commission just throwing money. They have the power of the purse. They need to stop funding. But at the same time, we also have laws that encourage this and defend them. So we need to repeal some of these statutes as well. And especially, you know, the state law, and this wouldn't apply to Clark County. I mean, it does, but not something that you could change. But the justifiable homicide law, if anyone's ever read that, and I'll, you know, later, with my question for Mr. Moody, read that, it's ridiculous. So just point being that we're giving too much power in these laws as well.
Well, and that's exactly right. And I think it goes directly to the point of accountability when you look at a citizen review board, when you look at a sheriff that doesn't take the recommendations of that review board. One of the first things that got me on board with Mr. Moody here is he took his livelihood and retired on principle. And I'm sure he'll get into this later, but when you see somebody stand up for principle and they're willing to put their livelihood, their career on the line, you've got somebody with integrity. And I think what is lacking, and you deserve it, absolutely. What is lacking in this town is a little bit of a backbone when it comes to dealing with people like Gillespie, who think they can get away with anything, and they have, because nobody has taken them to task. And the budget is the first thing I would use against the sheriff if the sheriff was a dictator like this that allowed his troops to abuse the people they're sworn to protect. One of the I agree, but that's where our sheriff's supposed to stand up for us. And you know, it's not just cliche. I carry the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution because it means something, because everybody you encounter in an official Clark County sheriff or Las Vegas Metro uniform, they swear an oath, not only to the Constitution of the United States, but to Nevada. And if they're not going to hold to that, then why are we supporting them? We are governed by the consent of the governed. Well, I don't consent anymore to being thrown up against a car and handcuffed for 20 minutes because I have a popular name. And they didn't do their homework to find out I wasn't the Jason Smith from Northern Nevada who has a warrant for abusing children. I'm the Jason Smith that isn't 5'8", 160 pounds. So I've been where you're at, where you're putting handcuffs for no reason, and you're looking at this cop going, where do you get off doing this? Well, it's because there's no accountability. When he goes back to his office, when he goes back to his sheriff's saying, hey, good job. All we cared about was how many people we put in jail or how many people we got tickets to. It's a revenue. I can raise revenue as a commissioner without taking it from each and every person that drives down the street. There are other ways to do it.
Okay, so let's go ahead and move on to Cindy. Oh, did you have a question? Sorry, come ask your questions. Here you go.
Hi, I'm Elmer Whitaker. I actually have 2 questions for you. You're a strong supporter of fracking, although it's not proven that fracking is harmless or doesn't poison our drinking water. How do you bring this in line with being a libertarian? Second question is, do you personally profit, or does your family profit from fracking?
Those are fair questions. The first, as a libertarian, I'm also very logical, and I want all the science done before we either condemn or give open range to people for fracking. So I have, that's not true? I don't support getting facts and
No, you're against hearings for fracking.
I'm against hearings for frackings. I didn't know that.
You posted it on Facebook. You want to see it?
I discussed on Facebook a couple issues with fracking with a couple of people, and I told them the science is not settled. I know that fracking can be done in a safe way because I know what the products are that they can put into the fracking water, and that's fine. I have, okay, well, I mean, if you have an issue with it, I understand, and we can either discuss it later or I don't know what to tell you.
Discussed in the hearing.
What about the hearings?
Are you against hearings?
I'm not against hearings.
Want me to put it out again?
You did it the first time, and I don't know what I'm supposed to say to it. And then the second is, do I profit, or does anybody in my family profit from fracking? No. I have absolutely nothing to do with fracking. I have a product that I can sell that can remediate H2S, which is a hydrocarbon, and that product is not currently being used in any fracking that I know of because it's too expensive for them to use, and they prefer to go a different way with it. What I said on Facebook specifically went to, there's no evidence that I've seen that the fracking endangers or hurts or damages the water table. And if there's proof that I'm wrong on that, I'd love to see it, and I'm open to the information and the science on it. But I would not condemn fracking when it is so useful for extracting oil and natural gas. To me, it's just another technology. I don't look at technology as evil. I look at it as it's a tool. Just like drones, I've been talking about drones, how I hate the fact that they can be used against the civilian population. But what if it's for media? What if it's for divers that want to locate sea life out in the ocean and then go right to where it is? There are technological advances that can be used in a peaceful and libertarian way. And I don't think it's against each other.
They're not used by government.
Correct.
Okay, let's go ahead. We need to, anybody else have any questions? Just keep this moving. Anybody? Come on up. Sorry, I can't see behind me. I'm sorry.
Hey, Jason. We've seen with the incident in northern Nevada, the Bundy Ranch incident, just how far the BLM, federal government, is willing to go to claim whatever land they think belongs to them. Now, in Nevada has more federal land control than any other state in the union, 86%. Do you fear that the BLM could attempt similar measures within Clark County, what they did in Bundy Ranch, and if so, what steps would you take to stop it from happening?
And that's a great question, especially with what's been going on and having gone up there Thursday to support the Bundys. Yes, it's definitely something we need to be very aware of. And it's not just BLM. The federal government has so many tools they can use. They can use the Endangered Species Act. They can say that there's a groundwater issue. They could say anything they want, and they don't have to justify it because science is just science to them as long as it points in their direction. We've seen that over and over again. So, exactly. So, as far as Clark County and independence from that kind of thing, that comes from our sheriff, that comes from our district attorney, that comes from our state, the governor, as well as the attorney general's office. But as a county, we should have stood up and said, get out. The response that Tom Collins gave, to me, is unforgivable when you have the governor calling for a peaceful resolution and a county commissioner saying those inbred bastards better plan their funeral. That's absolutely wrong. And to not stand up, which our opponents up here have not, and condemn that, is unforgivable.
Okay, do we have one more question? Okay, we're gonna just do one more and then we gotta keep it moving. Sorry, guys.
Good afternoon. Hi, I actually work for the Taxi Cab Authority. I'm one of the officers that work. The reason I'm asking this, it's a kind of a, I'll try to shorten it. The way it works is cabs in counties of 700,000 or above are regulated by us. Cabs under 700,000 are regulated by our sister agency, the Transportation Authority, but there are different statutes in the NRS. The question, and over the years, that from the founding of the TA in '69, that number 700,000 has been, it went from 100,000 to the present 700,000. So there's clearly never an intention for cabs outside of Clark County to be regulated by the TA. Never will be. Every so many years they raise that number. Last year, our leadership, one of our officers caught our leadership on a cell phone conversation admitting to the cab companies controlling the day-to-day operations of the agency. We have cab drivers ripping people off. The biggest issue we've asked is that the TA be placed back under the county local level, whether it be the county or the RTC or something. And this is more a question of all three of you. What would you do to make that happen, or would you make that happen? Because obviously, because we're a state fee-funded agency, the state doesn't have concern. How about, would you support placing the taxi authority back to the local level, back to Clark County or some entity?
And I'm just going to say, we'll let each of you answer that individually when you get the chance.
Yeah, the taxi cab authority, and how I look at this is, you're trying to put a step between the free market, which simply has exploded recently in many, many cities with the peer-to-peer, we'll call them rides. It's been proven that the regulations that are on taxi cabs right now clearly are so onerous that it opens up a market, even a black market. And that happens in anything, any commodity that you could think of. If you're going to overregulate it, there's somebody that's going to get around it. Now, when you get around that, you have opportunities for people to do things that are not quite the safest way to do it. So there is a reason for the TA, the Taxi Cab Authority. I just don't think it's being done right. I think what it is a top-heavy institution that gets away with a little bit more corruption than most people would, and I'll say that tongue-in-cheek, but you have cabs. These cabbies want to work. There's nothing wrong with the cab drivers in this town. Some of them aren't completely honest, and they take advantage of people, but you know what? That's where Yelp could even help, where you have a taxi cab with a number on it, and all of a sudden nobody wants that number because this guy has been posted everywhere as being corrupt. Or that's a free market way of saying to people, we don't need a heavy-handed government authority to stop you from doing what you're doing. We have the people saying, I'm no longer going to buy or patronize your service. And I think that's where we need to get back to, community involvement and responsibility.
Okay, let's go ahead and pass the mic on over to Cindy. Maybe we need some tape for this, I'm not sure. Ah! Take that one.
Going to turn that on. Thank you. I'm Cindy Lake, and I'll save you all some time.